We are City of Five Nations, and we are introducing today something that I look so forward to. And I hope that you do too, because it's election season. And how can we vote properly unless we know our vote? With local elections, which I think drive the world, it's so easy to get to know the people who are running for your elections. You can just pick up the phone normally and just call them or meet them for coffee. But even better, there has been a community leader who is so much fun to be around. She threw out something on Facebook that said, hey, who wants to try to do something with the candidates? And of course, you know, I took it hook, line, and sinker. And so Zoe Loeser, I want to bring on to the show. We are City of Five Nations. And Zoe, what was your idea? What are we going to do over the next few weeks?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, Daniel. We are going to be having a conversation with the candidates. If we, had time and lots of energy, we would be interviewing them individually, just having conversations about their positions on things with questions coming in from the community. But as it is, we will be interviewing candidates for the positions as a crew. So it'll be fun.
It will be fun. And you've got a list of all the candidates in the 5 races. We're not going to do like every race in the country. When we talked with some of the national races, we just decided we didn't want to mess with them. So we're going to keep it local, right? Tell us who we're going to be following or what races.
Keeping it local. Yeah, we're going to be talking with hopefully the candidates for mayor. There are 3 commission seats available. We'll be talking with the candidates for the commission seats, as well as the candidates for Potawatomi Sheriff.
Awesome. Okay, so when you say 3 commission candidate seats, talk to us a little bit about, or let's talk about the commission and the makeup of the commission and who's running or has to run in this election cycle. Because they split the commission cycles so that, and this isn't for you, Zoe, but it's for all of us, so that there's always somebody with experience and we don't get 6 or 7 new people who don't know what's going on. So half of the commission is actually up along with the mayor, which means the majority of the commission is up. And so what seats of the commission are up for grabs and who are those people that are running?
So for Ward 2, I can't remember, but for Ward 3
Schuler and Bob Weaver.
Oh, Ward right. And then for Ward 3, it is James Herod and Travis Flood. And then for Ward 4, it's LaDonna Bryce and Darren Rutherford.
Okay. And just for Mr. Schuler's, so Ward 2, 3, and is Rutherford then Ward 4? Is that right? Okay, cool. And the mayor then is it's the overall ward. So now something about our commission, Zoe, that is interesting for people who might be new in town. Do they get to vote for one commissioner, the commissioner that represents them, or how does that work?
They do not. Everyone within voting limits gets to vote for all of the city commissioners. So I can vote for wards 4 and Ward 3, even though that's not where I live.
So cool. So actually my vote, I'm able to impact any election within the wards.
Yes. Yep.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder which wards within or which sectors within our community actually do the most voting. That would be kind of interesting to know, because then you could really see where a lot of influence is coming from in the vote. And what an invigorator for someone who perhaps didn't think their vote was important.
Right.
If they don't vote, somebody else is voting for their representation.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not rare for a local vote to, be decided within, 5 to 10 votes. So it really does. People talk about the level of democracy at our national level, but for the local level, it's definitely still here and prevalent.
Okay, so Zoe, you just blew my mind. I keep the top of my head off so when my mind gets blown, it's not so evident. But did you just say 5 votes, meaning me and 4 friends could
Yeah.
have made a difference if we voted or we didn't vote?
Yep. If I'm remembering correctly, that is correct. So as long as definitely for the mayor, I think this, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's true for the commission too. But as long as they get over half the votes, so 51% of the votes, and that can be decided if you have, 350 people voting, that can be a pretty tight measure.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
it is for sure. And so often, it's rare for the votes to be over 55 one way, 45 the other. It's usually within that range. I think we're safe to say. And there are 3 of the elections then, or 2 of the elections that we're following that will be decided because there's only 2 people running in Ward 2. There's only 2 people running in Ward 3.
right.
There are 2 people running in Ward 4.
Yeah, so all the commission seats will theoretically be very close.
And they will be decided because somebody will get more than 50% of the vote because there's only 2 people.
Right. We won't have an additional runoff if there's not a majority.
So
there will be a majority.
when will I have the opportunity to vote if I live within the borders of the city of Five Nations, Shawnee, Oklahoma?
The election is June 30th. I'm not sure if there's an absentee ballot deadline. I know that the deadline to register to vote is June 5th. So if you have not done so already, please register to vote.
And how would somebody do that, Zoe? How does somebody register?
I know you can do it at the tag offices. I'm sure there are other places where you can do that, but I did it at the tag office. That's my knowledge.
Yeah, and that's very insightful because there's 2 tag offices, of course, one over on Highland. It's like Highland and Market, maybe, or Highland and Beard. And then there's one out on Kickapoo across the street from Eric's Pharmacy. And then you can also go directly to the election board office, which is out on Acme Road, just by 177. And Oklahoma, it's funny. I'm going to go on a rabbit trail. Oklahoma, I think it was like in 2014 or, right around there, decided that we were going to do online registrations, but it's, they're having web difficulty. We still cannot do online reservations, I should say, to vote. So we have to do it locally, which is even better for us because then we get to meet more people.
Yeah. And meeting people matters.
That's true because we're about to meet a few of them. And do you know the candidates, Zoe?
I have relationships with some of them, but most of them I do not.
Well, and that's part of the fun. I want viewers to maybe watch, and maybe we can, we know each other a little bit, so I kind of know who you know or don't know. But you don't know who I'm for, do you?
Nope, I don't. I don't know who.
So as we go through this, I want to make sure that I remain impartial. I want to make sure that I ask, just fair questions, and I don't, do anything out there. Yeah, so if I go over the board, you got to call me on it, okay? Hey, Daniel. If you think
I have no fear that you will be, as much as we are working to make sure that this is a really healthy conversation for our community and not in any way kind of polarizing, I'm sure you will do just fine.
That's Zoe. She's laying the ground rules right off. She's saying, hey, boy, this is how it's going to happen.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, if I could just do it in one-on-one interviews, I think that would be a lot, our potential for friction would be a lot lower, but I really want this to be something that's educational for voters and not anything that's divisive or polarizing. So I'm gotta walk that line.
You bring up a good point, and I don't want to misunderstand, but you just said if you could do it one-on-one, do you mean like without an audience, or do you mean just what do you mean by that?
I just mean,
what do you think is the ideal?
Yeah, well, I think the ideal would be our politicians being able to sit in coffee shops with voters and just have conversations about the things that matter. In our current world, we yeah, because of COVID, that's not necessarily in the cards, but we also have access to the internet. So what my hope would be basically to have a coffee shop conversation, like I would be meeting with the candidate on Zoom and just having a conversation about the things that matter to me, and yeah, then having people listen in, and that would be ideal for me. But yeah, again, time, energy. And so here we are with interviewing multiple time.
But also you're displaying a little bit of vulnerability there, in the sense of you're willing, I mean, or else you wouldn't, be here this morning. You're willing to actually have this conversation public. And that takes a lot of guts to be able to do.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind being on camera, so it's fine for me.
Well, and so we want to then present and help you help the people you're talking to be the most comfortable that they could be. Would it be more comfortable for you if it was just you and the candidate? I wasn't involved. I wasn't on the screen. And I mean, we could talk anytime we wanted to, if you wanted to. But I mean, that's in the cards as well.
Oh, no, that's fine.
We can do anything, Zoe. We can do anything.
The world is our oyster, except meet in groups larger than 10. That's the only thing.
That's right. That's right.
Although going to the grocery store,
backstage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you on. I think that's great.
Okay. Well, I'm sincere in that too. Know that. I mean, if there are conversations, you just slap me. My wife calls me a Labrador puppy all the time. You just got to slap me and slow me down.
You're good. I trust you.
Okay, so we're going to go with the commission and the sheriff. Mm-hmm. The sheriff is the only county-wide, and I guess I kind of said, hey, let's do the sheriffs too, because we actually have audience who have requested the sheriff race, which is kind of interesting. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the candidates themselves. And of course, this is not required for candidates to do. This is something we're announcing like right now.
Yeah.
So what about participation from the candidates? What's our game plan for that?
If we could have everybody, that would be awesome. If that doesn't feel like a fit for someone, for whatever reason, that's okay too. It's a kind of a no pressure conversation. I know that PAVE is still continuing with some type of Zoom call. So education for voters will be available and accessible. And I say the more the merrier on that.
So as a candidate, why might you not want to do something with Daniel and Zoe? Why not? Come on.
I don't know. It might be that it's more casual, or I don't know. Well, I was going to say something about being on camera, but I guess you'd have to do that for the city too. Or PAVE. I think people have their different reasons.
Well, and we are just practice then, because we get to help them. Yeah, because once they're elected, which they all know they're going to be elected, right? Then we're just helping them with their camera.
Sure.
Visage.
Absolutely. And also, why wouldn't they want to have a conversation about the things that matter to the people of the community? So.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if they could find two kinder people than you and me. Yeah, nobody will even know who we're for or we're not for, because you, Zoe, are just learning down the trail, and you want to figure out who to vote for.
That's true. Yeah, so Daniel is, interested in who he's going to vote for, and I am as well. My big thing is, I want Shawnee to be the best place to raise a kid in the United States by the year 2068. So that's 48 years from now. And I will be 80. That's why the year. And our lawmakers play a huge role in that. And I want to make sure that I am, helping move that in that direction. And that includes having educated votes on who's going into office. And like you said, I want this to be a safe space. I don't want them to feel challenged, or I just want them to be able to be themselves and have a conversation about what they're thinking about certain issues.
Which I think that is wise for your years, is we must know why we're voting for someone. That's kind of the play on words with, I want to title this series, Know Your Vote. Because it's so much easier to vote negative because like you don't like somebody, or maybe there was something they did, one thing or two things that you go, ooh, well, I'm against them now. And that is really not an educated vote. An educated vote is someone who looks beyond the one or two things that you might be pissed off about and goes deeper into the reality of what you want to happen within your community. Because the 7 people who run our city commission or our elected city commissioners, they don't become bad people just because all of a sudden they're elected.
Right.
And that just doesn't happen.
Also.
Or good people. That's right. They are who they are before they get on the commission. And then because of the way in which we polarize things, just in our human world, a lot of times we start to get these weird things just because they put their bottoms in a seat and they're trying to do the best they can as a volunteer service to their community 20 hours a week. I mean, that's a lot of time that they invest. What happens is they're exposed to a lot of information that we aren't exposed to, that we just don't have the 20 hours a week to expose ourselves to. It's not that it's not available. But so when we start getting into these one issue fights, it is a detriment to our community. It is a detriment to moving all of us forward in a way that's positive for everyone. And that's going to be painful, more painful for some than others, whatever move we make. So, I mean, I appreciate so much, Zoe, the idea that you've brought to the table of just getting to know people. So do you mind if we call it Know Your Vote?
Yeah, that's great.
Entendre?
Do it.
All right. That sounds great. So you have actually begun to touch out in the community people who you feel would be important to ask questions to. How is that going? And you don't have to say who they are or anything, but what's your ideas behind the questions that you're going to be raising with the candidates?
Yeah, so Daniel and I have gotten kind of a brainstormed list together of people from different sectors or different walks of life that we both know. There are plenty of people on that list that I don't know, and there were even people that Daniel had to ask me about. Just reaching out and seeing if they would have any questions for the mayor or commissioner. And some people are not comfortable doing the politics thing. And I would say during the interviews with the candidates, those questions will be on video. So we would pop up the person's video and just have them ask the question via video, pre-recorded, of course, and then the candidates would respond. So it would actually be someone's face. You would know who they are, and potentially, know where they work or something like that. And so that can be a little uncomfortable for people. Honestly, it's a little uncomfortable for me to do this, but I know that as a citizen of the community, this is super important and I believe in it. And if I want to think nationally and act locally, this is, I think, something really important for me to do. So I definitely get it if people aren't comfortable or for some reason their job will not allow them to be loud about city elections or something like that. But I am getting a pretty good response. I also know that PAVE is going to be doing this as well. And I think theirs are going to be anonymous. So plenty of people have said that they would be happy to submit anonymous questions. So I'd encourage people, if they're really interested in voter education, to tune in both places, because I think we'll have a really nice variety of questions.
And questions for the candidates are good. And you touch on the aspect of it being a better place, like the top place to raise a family when you're 80. So that's what?
48
60 years from now?
Yeah, 48 years from now. Mm-hmm.
Very good. 48.
Yeah.
Okay. So family in the year 2048, that's 68,
2068.
2070. 2068.
68.
That's woo. That was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. You know.
But you mentioned, hey, I've got this thought in, 2068, this is going to be the best place to raise a family. But in order for that to happen, we've got to become vulnerable. I mean, anytime that we start in something new, there's a vulnerability that has to come first. The ideas have to come first. And so you're to be commended for stepping out, because young families, just like yours and Brandon's, which are really the heart and soul of communities like ours, we need to activate. I mean, it's a busy life, but we need the vote to come out if those voices are going to be heard. This is really, your vote is really how your voice is heard. But if you don't vote, you've chosen not to even participate. Would you encourage people in that, Zoe? How long have you been in Shawnee now? Has it been like 8 years, 6 years?
It's been 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, not very long. And I would say too, in case people feel left out of the family idea, for whatever reason, whether it's age or, relationship status or something like that, I chose that goal because it affects every systemic issue in our community. It affects domestic abuse. It affects incarceration rates. It affects, third grade literacy rates. It touches everything. And so anything that comes back to making Shawnee the best place to raise a kid is going to be good for everyone. From our friends at Primrose to folks who, to OBU students. I mean, it will impact everybody.
And so, no, even if you didn't make the list, our list is ever changing, right, Zoe? And anybody who listens to this can give us a question. We'd love for you to be a part of it. In fact, if you reach out to us, you're pretty much guaranteed you'll be on this show.
Probably so. Yeah, you have to submit a video, though.
But that's easy nowadays.
The
videos are easy. I mean, I think even I could do a video.
I think we could. That might be a stretch, Daniel. I don't know, man.
Okay, so we're at the end of May. I mean, we're coming into the end of May, the final week of May. What's our timeline look like, Zoe? And now this can change. I mean, both of us know that, but let's just throw out what people can anticipate. We're kind of previewing this on the Saturday, and what are we going to do?
Well, I think we actually need to hash this out. It depends on whether or not we're going to do the videos live. If we're going to do the videos live, I think we'll probably be doing them closer to elections. Is that right?
Well, but
I'm looking at my calendar.
Zoe, I got your email, and I think that I've heard your heart, and I think we'll do them live, but then maybe we'll release them, so everybody can feel comfortable.
Yeah. And so the question is live versus pre-recorded. And I would prefer pre-recorded, just letting the listeners know, because the model for us in our current age is what happens on nationally syndicated news. And what happens on nationally syndicated news is not, I think, healthy for a local community and people who have to end up being neighbors at the end of the day. I think the news is really angry. I think the news does not create safe place for people, which is something we really aspire to do. And so Daniel and I are going to have some kind of guidelines set up to keep that from happening. But I also want to make sure there's grace for people if someone, ends up getting really passionate over an issue, and which is okay. We all get really passionate, but I do want there to be grace that they're kind of not stuck on this image of themselves that they'd rather not have out there. And, and if they just like say something, we don't necessarily have to edit everything, but if somebody really kind of loses their cool and we think it maybe is more, would press divides a little bit more than they already are, then we'll edit. And I think that just gives everybody a little bit more grace.
So Zoe, what I heard you say is safe.
Yeah.
Zoe would prefer that this be safe for everyone, which gives the candidates, I mean, honestly, more reason to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're looking for. Is we understand that, it's hard to run for an election.
Sure,
it's hard
absolutely.
to put your name out there and say, hey, I'm willing to go through this. And the vast majority of us don't do that. And so the instant respect that we should show people who decide to do that, I think that's what I'm hearing, Zoe, you want to honor. Yeah. You want to honor these people who are really running for volunteer positions that they know if they win in the next 4 years, they'll be taking a lot of flack. They're putting a lot of themselves out there.
Yeah, it's a very thankless job. And we appreciate everyone who walks that walk.
On the onset, you would like to make sure that it is a safe spot for them to be able to share.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that shows a lot about Zoe Loeser, which is awesome. Okay, so we're going to have these videos. We're going to release them prior to election, and we're going to have fun putting them together. Right?
Yeah. So I think our tentative release date.
Hey, Zoe, I said we're gonna have fun, and you just rolled right over that. You just were like, yeah, whatever. It's gotta be fun.
I really am looking forward to meeting some of the folks that I've heard so much about that I haven't gotten a chance to meet yet. And that goes too with the people that we're interviewing. There are plenty of folks from Daniel's list that I haven't gotten to meet, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about them and these people in the community as well. I think it will be a good time.
Or seeing their headshots at least.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go down just for kicks, let's go down that list. In Ward 2, do you know Mr. Schuler?
I do not.
Do you know Bob Weaver?
I do not.
I do not know Mr. Schuler yet. I do know Bob Weaver. How about Ward 3, James Herod? Do you know James Herod?
I do not think I've met James Herod.
Okay, I know James Herod. Do you know Travis Flood?
I do. I do know Travis.
Okay, and I know Travis, so I know both of them. How about Ward 4, LaDonna Bryce? Do you know LaDonna Bryce?
I do not.
I do not know LaDonna Bryce either. And do you know Rutherford?
I do not.
That would be Darren Rutherford, and I know Darren. Okay, then for mayor, Ed Bolt. Do you know Ed Bolt?
I do know Ed.
I know Ed. Do you know Teresa Cody?
I have met Teresa Cody, yes.
Okay, and I know Teresa. Dean Hudlow. Do you know Dean Hudlow?
I do not.
These are our candidates for mayor. I know Dean Hudley. Do you know Ron Gillum?
I have emailed with Ron. I don't know that I have had the honor of meeting him.
So in today's terms, that's like writing letters. I mean, pen pals.
Yeah, we have been pen pals.
All right. And I know Ron. Okay, so then for sheriff, how about Booth? Do you know Booth? Do you know Griffith?
I don't think so. No, I don't.
Do you know Henderson?
I do not.
And for some reason, I feel like I'm leaving somebody off that list. I'm sorry if I am, and we will
No,
find you, or you
3.
find us. Okay, cool. So I know Booth. I have spoken with Booth before. I really think I know Griffith, but I haven't placed it yet, and hopefully we'll work through that. And then it's funny because Ben Henderson, I might know him too, but so I don't really know the sheriff guys, like to a point in which I know them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really am looking forward to, because like I just said, I really don't know a lot of these people, and looking forward to knowing these community members, because they're all leaders in the community. And looking forward to that.
Okay. So everybody beware. Zoe and Daniel are coming after you. We're going to try to get you involved a little bit, because your vote is so important, but the real crux of what we're trying to do is know your vote.
Yeah.
It's one thing just to kind of read a list and say, I'm going to vote for him, or I'm not going to vote for that one. But it's a whole different ball game to dig a little deeper so that you can actually know your vote and why you're voting for someone and you're not voting against someone just because you're mad. I mean, it's huge. That's what can stop communities, is just voting on what you think you know rather than really digging in and getting to know them. So Zoe, way to go. Way to motivate this and way to get it going.
Thanks.
It's going to be fun.
I think it will
Whether
be
you
fun.
have fun or not, it's going to be fun.
Theoretically, I should have fun.
Well, I really wanted to come up with you eating your cereal.
Well,
I mean,
I
that's
still
really
have it
where
here.
I
It's
was.
a little soggy at this point, but
You know, I like my Raisin Bran soggy.
this
Full
is
disclosure.
Uncle Sam's. It's like flaxseed and
Oh,
puffed wheat. It's like it's the super healthy stuffs.
way to go. That's why you get such a good complexion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has nothing to do with my makeup or anything. Yeah. Yeah. That
All
dewy
right.
glow.
So Zoe, have we given enough information? Do you think everybody's ready for this show to go forward?
I think another note is we are also going to try to get the written transcripts of what's out there and
Wait. We've talked about that a little bit, and I don't think that's safe.
Oh, well, they will submit their answers. So it won't be the actual transcripted interviews, but they will answer in writing the questions we give them ahead of time.
Right. And I actually would like to have those answers before we go with them. So you and I can kind of already help them, with our own understanding of what might be perceived of these written answers.
Yes. So all that to say, this will also be in written form somewhere. So if you are more of a reader person than a video person like me, this will also be available to you.
You've got all bases covered. I mean,
there's no reason not to know. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Zoe Loeser, thank you.
Yeah, thanks
for your effort. Thank you for your upcoming efforts. And we will move forth into June, which is election time. And everybody, please know your vote. You've been with Zoe Loeser and Daniel Shaughnessy on the We Are City of Five Nations podcast today, where together we're building community one season at a time. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Tell everybody bye, Zoe.
Bye. Yeah.